So ransomware threat trends, methodologies, and tactics. So we talk about double extortion ransomware. What does that mean? What it means is that in addition to putting your files up for ransom, first we'll steal them and we'll threaten to release them, or we'll sell them on the dark web. It is important that we recognize this. Chain analysis indicated that victims of paid ransomware groups, call it $450 million in cryptocurrency between January and June of this year, so in the first half. This is on pace to exceed the total amount of ransomware paid in 2022. That's $900 million, close to $1 billion. Now, that $1 billion matters for a reason that we mentioned earlier. Ransomware is always evolving. Guess who pays for that evolution? We do by paying the ransom. If I'm a ransomware operator and I collect my share of that $1 billion, I can hire a lot of really good programmers for a lot less than $1 billion. And so we are paying for the way that it keeps changing on us for it becoming better, because they learn lessons too. Most programmers are smart. I won't say all because I'm considered a programmer, but most programmers are smart. And so we're paying to make it better. And the double extortion technique, it's about encrypting and then stealing. Ransomware attacks now involve double extortion, where bad actors will both encrypt victim data and steal that data with the intent of publicly leaking it should the victim not pay up. We saw this happen with Sony Pictures a few years ago, where that Seth Rogen film about the guy who was interviewing the dictator from North Korea came out, and they stole it and they threatened to release it before it was released to theaters. It turned out it was a really terrible movie, so nobody cared if they released it, but it forced Sony to release it early without the normal release stuff, which cost them money. This is sometimes referred to as extortionware. And the emerging trend is not to even bother to encrypt, just steal. And now we get triple extortion ransomware. So to understand this, what they do is they say, okay, we'll encrypt you, we'll steal your data, and if you're still not willing to pay, we'll set up a DDoS attack. And John, can you talk to us about DDoS attacks and what they look like?
Yeah, so usually the way that they're doing these attacks, which is essentially they're just blasting your systems with traffic to eat up CPU cycles, but they are either doing it with their own infrastructure through existing systems they've already compromised, or in some cases, I believe you can even get DDoS as a service, so you can pay people to DDoS whoever you want.
Yeah, there's famously the high Earth orbit and the low Earth orbit cannon that you can point at people, and you just pay. So 83% of all successful ransomware attacks feature double and triple extortion. It's just becoming the way it works now. Pay me or I'll ransom your files. No, I won't pay you because we'll restore from backups. Okay, I stole your information, pay me or I'll release it. No, we're not going to pay an extortion attempt. Okay, then we'll just shut you down with a DDoS attack. It starts getting truly ugly once you get infected. Zero-day vulnerabilities, and I'm always terrible at explaining these. What's a zero-day vulnerability, John?
So a zero-day vulnerability is just a vulnerability that hasn't been discovered yet. It's a brand new vulnerability that either the attacker has discovered or they have somebody else has discovered it and the attacker has purchased it from whoever's discovered it.
And the problem with zero-day vulnerabilities is that we don't know what's going on yet. So we don't know how to fix them. And we're not aware of them. In general, when most white hat hackers find a vulnerability, they will alert the people who are affected by it for a certain amount of time. I've seen 30 days, I've seen 60 days. A zero-day vulnerability, they didn't alert anyone, so we don't know about it. And evading detection. So one of the first things, and I've done this in writing malware, one of the first things you do is you look for what systems are there set up to protect you. For example, if it's a virtual machine, which is to say a machine that hosts lots of servers. This is often the case with web servers, et cetera. If you use Amazon Web Services, you don't have your own server. What you have is a portion of a server that you pay for and that's virtual so that they can host multiple on one machine. They look for that. And instead of trying to attack it to ransom those files because they're ephemeral, they can be destroyed and recreated very quickly. Instead, what they do is they start looking for the host machine. But the first thing they do is they look to see if it's a virtual machine. And one of the important things to note, cyber threat actors put greater focus on using valid credentials and legitimate software to evade detection. So if I want to attack, instead of trying to just hack in randomly, let me brute force and try to get real credentials that might be on this machine. Because your administrator is going to look at it and say, oh, Ron logged in. That's fine. That's not fine because it's not actually Ron. One of the things we always say to administrators is look at the times. I am famously for here a night owl, so is John. If I log in at 11 o'clock to do some work, that just means that before I went to sleep, I thought of something I could do and I'm going to work for a couple of hours. If, on the other hand, I log in at 5:30 in the morning, it's not me. I'm not logging in at 5:30 in the morning. I'm not a morning person. I'm not going to wake up and log in. So you do have to look at the behavioral aspects of your network as well as the technical ones, because cyber threat actors are looking to use that. 20% of threat actors that deploy ransomware have shifted away from encrypting systems. They don't even want to ransom it. They simply extort, they steal it, and they extort with it. And AlpV, which as we said is Black Cat, adds data leak API in the new extortion strategy. So what's an API? We had a whole webinar on APIs a few months ago where we talked about them. APIs stand for Application Programming Interfaces. And as I say, if you want to know more, we have a whole webinar on this. Please go to our webinar archives. Go back and look at it. There's a lot of information in each of these. But multiple researchers spotted earlier this week that Black Hat added a new page with instructions for using their API to collect data about their victims. And APIs just mean that there are new ways to attack you that you're not prepared for because you can just link into the API.